Hello and welcome to another brand new vlog on my channel, and this is going to be from the Blackpool Tower Eye and the Blackpool Tower Dungeon, which are two Merlin attractions in Blackpool, and they are two fantastic attractions that are located at the north end of the beach. And we are visiting the Blackpool Tower Dungeon. So the dungeon starts with a fantastic looking exterior facade. There's a lot of theming on there with 10 actor shows and a ride, and it is a fantastic dungeon. And just as an overview, skip to the timestamp in the description if you don't want to get spoiled, but honestly I do think this is my new favourite dungeon. And obviously going in, you've got the photo opportunities, and you can buy these at the end, and you also get a code to download them. And obviously you get the stocks one, you get one in the Plague Doctor with the guts, you get a judge one with where you have to hold up the reason you're guilty. And that leads us into the first scene, which is the descent and also the lift jester. So you head in and they tell you, there's a voiceover that says you're going to be entering the dungeons of the pool that is black, and they tell you that you're not allowed to use any flashy or talkie boxes. And then you move into the scene and the jester comes out, and she came in to crank the lift up so we could go down into the dungeon. And while she was doing it, she said she'd been learning a song for us, and then she sang it while she was cranking up the lift, picked out someone and asked them if they liked it. And it's a fantastic scene, has a lot of theming in it, and that leads you into the actual lift itself, which has some special effects in, and it's quite similar to the one in the London one. And then you leave the lift and head into the Dark Chapel, which is quite similar to the Warwick one, but it's quite different at the same time. And you head into quite a well themed room, and it's the projected face on the projected head, and it goes through what's going to happen inside of the dungeon and a bit more history on the dungeon itself. And then at the end, one of the monks pops up and instructs you to go into the next room, and that's quite a good jump scare if you're not expecting it. And it is really well themed room, it's themed all the way round as well, which is always good. And then you move into the Plague Doctor, and the actor I had in the Plague Doctor scene is one of the best actors, if not the best actor I've ever had in a Plague Doctor scene, because these scenes are normally pretty standard, but the actor made it fantastic. He really played it quite creepy, and obviously it's got a similar script with pulling out the bits, and there's always a bladder that they squirt, and it's always quite a fun scene. But the actor on this really made it, and obviously someone gets picked out to go behind the curtain, and they got operated for the plague to suck all the bad blood. And it's always one of the best scenes, one of the best standard scenes that you get in all of the dungeons, and especially in the Blackpool one with a slightly unique script and the actor that was just fantastic in here. Then we headed into the Torturer, which is another classic scene, and the torture room in this one is really well themed. There's a wheel with a few bodies on it and in the corner, and it's again a similar script to before, but the person who got picked out someone gets in the cage and then someone else has to sit in the chair, and the one person he got picked out, he really made it. When he had to stand up so they could demonstrate some of the particular torture devices, and one of them they always say, we can't use this one on the ladies, that might be a bit of a clue, and they always have the theming next to them with the burning hot coals. And the actor was really good in this one as well. It's a very unique room. Then we're headed into the judge, and this is always a scene which is quite a funny one. There's always different stories, even though it is a classic dungeon scene, but this one was quite funny because the most notable thing that happened was when someone got picked out and they said they'd been caught bashing the bishop, and they had to read out that they had been a disgrace to the pool that is black, and they will never be caught being a bishop basher. The judge, I've actually never seen this before. It was the same actor that was in The Plague Doctor, so that really made it, because it was one of the best actors I've ever had in a dungeon in my experiences, because I've been in quite a few of them now, and this one was my second time in there. And it's just a really funny scene with what the person has to read out, whoever it is, and it's always one of the highlights. It's probably my favourite out of the classic scenes. And then we headed into one of the best elements that I didn't really expect to be, and it was the labyrinth. And at first it just seems like a standard mirror maze, but it is probably the best mirror maze I've ever been in, because it's got a lot of mist down the bottom, and that sort of covers up the bottom of the mirror, so it's really hard to get through there. And there's a few jump scares with like hanging bodies, and there's an actor in there as well, and there's really well themed with all the leaves at the top, and then the actor jump scares and brings you into the next scene. But I was really impressed with this. I wasn't expecting it from a mirror maze. And then we headed into one of the best scenes, and it is the haunting. And this is the main ghost show scene of this particular dungeon, and it is fantastic. It is a really good scene, and obviously it tells the story of Mary Sheldon, and something you don't expect is that the main actor in the scene, at the end he says, "This is the story of my mother," and it's quite similar to the Molly Lee one in the Alton Towers dungeon, where you've got the children where they play the games with her, and then you get all the pots and moving on the table, and then all the shelves collapse, and then you actually get the ghost come in the room, and it is a really scary scene. It's definitely the scariest one in the dungeon itself. And then, unlike most dungeons, that's not the end. You actually head into a unique scene because it's only available for a limited time, and this is the Body Snatchers, and it's a fantastically themed scene. You would go into the graveyard with all the cave, and then the actor inside is guarding the graves, so if the Body Snatchers come, and then she leaves the room through some mist, and then the room goes dark, and it's quite similar to the Jack the Ripper scene in the London one actually, where you hear, and also the Highwayman in Alton Towers, where you hear the Body Snatchers behind you, and then the seats will drop back, and if you're not expecting it, it's quite a scare. But it is in pretty much all of the dungeons. But it's a really well themed room, and obviously it is an exclusive scene for the summer, but it is really well themed. And then we headed into the final scene, which is the Pendle Witches, which is the sort of pre-show to the Drop Tower. And when you come down the stairs after leaving the body snatcher scene, and it's all in the forest, and there's a screen with a potential witch being hanged, and she says, "You know why I'm hanging around here?" And then she goes through about all the witch trials that were going on, and then at the end of that scene the doors open and she leads you through into the drop ride, which is the ride in this dungeon. And the theming in the witch room is actually really well themed. As you come down the stairs into the forest. And then the final part to this dungeon is the drop tower, and I was quite impressed with this actually. It's very different to the one in the London dungeon, and it's just quite unique, because instead of like the London one where it just goes dark and then you drop down underground and you see all the skeletons hanging, it's actually a bit different. So you actually start by heading up, and then there's this screen, obviously with the main theming of the ride being the hanging of the Pendle Witches. On the screen there's actually an actor that tells you that it's your time to be hanged, and then you actually drop down, and it's not that tall, but the force as you hit the bottom is incredible. It is a really good drop tower. It's probably more forceful than the London one, even though I don't think it's quite as big. And here's my on-ride photo from it as well. And then obviously, similarly to the London dungeon, it ends with the tavern. And this one is the Red Lion, and it is similar to the London one. It's quite well themed, and you can buy drinks from there, and it's just a really good scene. And it's a nice way to end the dungeon. Instead of just leaving, you actually go through. And there is a bit of a small gift shop at the exit to the tavern as well. But what's good about this one that the London one doesn't do is that you can actually just go in any time. You don't have to go through the dungeon to go through. But yeah, we sat and had a drink in there. And it's really well themed. And it actually exits into the arcade, which is just outside at the bottom of the tower. But even the exterior is quite well themed as well. And there's a photo opportunity with the skeleton, the Skelfie. And that's just inside, just near the exit. And we picked up some pop badges because they give them out in a lot of Merlin attractions, and they had those on the actual bar in the pub. And then that wraps up the dungeon. And I really like the dungeon. It's probably my favourite dungeon now because of everything inside there. And I think overall it's also not an upcharge from the tower as well for pass holders, which is really good. So overall it's a really good dungeon. But now we are going to head inside the incredible Blackpool Tower Eye. This is obviously the main icon of the Blackpool seafront, standing at 158 metres, and it took 7 years to build. It is an incredible experience. Obviously, with it being the icon of the seafront, you can see it all across from the other side, right from the south end. Obviously it stands at the north end of the beach between Central and North Pier. and it's a really impressive structure to look at. So the experience starts with an incredible 4D experience, which is a fantastic show. Obviously, while you're waiting to go in, you've got these screens around the side of the waiting area which show various scenes and iconic attractions from Blackpool. Obviously you've got the illuminations with the trams. You've got the central pier Ferris wheel. And there's quite a few different iconic moments from around Blackpool. Obviously you've got the piers on there, the illuminations, the trams, the tower's also featured. And also check out my vlog from Blackpool Illuminations last year if you haven't already. There's quite a bit of history as well on there. Opened way back in 1894, meaning that it is a very historic attraction with well over 100 years of history. In fact, a few years ago it celebrated its 125th anniversary. Obviously you've got various scenes from the skyline. There's also some footage from the 4D and the glass walkway, which we'll be checking out very soon. And obviously you've got the beach, you've got some of the circus and the Blackpool Tower Dungeon. Got some of the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. And there's some of the trams. And then obviously you head into the 4D experience, and it's fantastic. There are a lot of different effects, and the main premise is the magic of Blackpool Tower. And there's various scenes from the ballroom and the circus. There's the pleasure beach, and there's the illuminations, and it's quite a unique 4D because it's actually a standing theatre, and obviously with many iconic scenes from the Blackpool town and the attractions, it is fantastic with all the effects and 3D, and it is one of the best 4D experiences there is, I think, because of the fantastic effects and the visuals, and the 3D is really good on there as well. You've got quite a lot of different scenes which work really well with the 3D effects, and yeah, I think it is a fantastic 4D experience to add to the Tower Eye experience. So there is a small waiting area for the lift to go up to the Eye, and there's quite a bit of history, and there's some old signage and posters from during the construction. There's actually some images of when they were beginning construction of the tower. Obviously it did take 7 years to build, opening in 1894. Obviously there's one of the vintage posters from 1894 when it first opened its doors to the public. And then we headed into the elevator. Obviously as you're going up you can get some beautiful views across the seafront, with obviously Central Pier just down there, it's not too far away. And obviously you've got the big one and South Pier as a backdrop to that. Obviously it's a really nice ride up to the top because of all the fantastic views you can get right the way down to the south end of the beach. And then we exited the lift into the Tower Eye, where obviously the glass walkway is. There is Central and South Piers, obviously there's North Pier, and then we went on to the glass skywalk, where you can see a lot of unique angles of the structure. And over there is the Irish Sea. Obviously Blackpool is located on the northwest coast of Lancashire. Inside of the Eye there is some more of the structure which you wouldn't normally get to see. Obviously there is North Pier into the Irish Sea. There is Central Pier with the iconic Ferris wheel. See down there you've got the comedy carpet and more of the structure for the tower. There's obviously the comedy carpet with various quotes from over the years. We can get some perspectives of that from up on the glass skywalk. Obviously down the side of the tower you've got all the LED lights which light up the tower as part of the illuminations. There's more of North Pier, one of the 3 piers in Blackpool. And there is Central and South Pier, with the Pleasure Beach just behind South Pier.
It's not just straight up, it's quite curved, and you don't realise until you come to the top.
That's a closer look at South Pier. Obviously you've got the Sandcastle Water Park just behind that, and just behind that is Big One, which is part of the Pleasure Beach. Then there is Central Pier with the iconic Ferris wheel.
Yeah, because of the angle, yeah.
And over there is Pleasure Beach with Big One and Ice Blast. And obviously the casino building being the entrance to the park. And then there is a bar which you can have a drink in there with some more views down towards the north end of the beach. There's more of the Irish Sea and the comedy carpet with some views down the structure. And then after having a drink in the bar, we headed back down the lift, getting some fantastic views along the way. Now we're just arriving back at the entrance to the tower. And that wraps up this vlog from the Blackpool Tower Eye and the Blackpool Tower Dungeon. And this is a fantastic attraction as part of the Eye brand. Obviously the dungeon is one of the best dungeons, and the Blackpool Tower, you can get some fantastic views from at the top on the glass skywalk, and the 4D is really great with some effects and visuals inside.